In the quiet New England town of Ashworth, Ethan Parker was the definition of a man in a hurry. In his early 20s, he was sharp, ambitious, and perpetually glued to his phone. His world was a blur of deadlines, conference calls, and the relentless climb up the corporate ladder. He had a family who loved him, but he was a ghost in his own home, rarely present for dinner, let alone a real conversation. His life was a high-stakes game, and he was determined to win, even if it meant sacrificing everything else. One chilly December morning, something broke his routine. Slipped under his front door was an old-fashioned, cream-colored envelope. There was no stamp, no return address. Just his name, Ethan, written in elegant cursive. Puzzled, he picked it up. A small, neatly folded note was attached to the front. It read, "Open this when you have 5 minutes to breathe." Ethan scoffed. 5 minutes? He didn't have 5 seconds. He tossed the letter onto his kitchen counter, next to a stack of work files, and immediately forgot about it as he dove back into his emails. Later that evening, exhausted and mentally drained, his eyes fell on the letter again. The cryptic message gnawed at him. Curiosity finally won.
Yeah.
He poured himself a cup of coffee, sat by the window overlooking the quiet, snow-dusted street, and broke the seal. The paper inside was thick, and the words were handwritten. The letter began without a greeting, jumping straight into a story from his past. It described a rainy afternoon when he was 16. He'd been driving his first car when he saw an elderly man struggling with a flat tire on the side of the road. Most cars just sped past, but for some reason, he had pulled over. Spent the next hour in the rain, getting soaked and dirty, helping the stranger change his tire. He hadn't thought about that day in years. How could anyone else know about it? The letter continued, recounting other forgotten moments. There was the time in middle school when he noticed a classmate sitting alone without any lunch. He'd quietly split his own sandwich and slid half of it onto the other kid's tray, pretending he wasn't that hungry. Then there was the anonymous donation he made to the local animal shelter after saving up his allowance for months. Each story was a small, almost insignificant act of kindness he had performed and long since forgotten. The letter ended with a single, chilling line, "You didn't realize it, but each small act created ripples far bigger than you could ever imagine." Ethan felt a strange mix of confusion and unease. Who could have sent this? It had to be a prank. It'd be an old friend trying to mess with him. He tried to brush it off, but the stories lingered in his mind. The next morning, another letter was there, and another the day after that. Each one detailed a different moment, a different person whose life he had touched without knowing. One letter spoke of a quiet girl in his college literature class. He had once complimented her analysis of a poem, telling her she had a unique perspective. The letter revealed that his simple words had given her the confidence to pursue a career in writing. She was now a published poet. Another letter told the story of a lost dog he had found, wandering near a park. He had spent his entire Saturday afternoon making posters and calling shelters until he located the frantic owner. That dog, the letter explained, belonged to a lonely widower who considered the pet his only family. Ethan's small effort had saved the man from crushing grief. With each new letter, his skepticism crumbled, replaced by a growing sense of awe and a heavy dose of introspection. He was seeing a version of himself he no longer recognized, a person who noticed others, who took the time to help. Where had that person gone? The letters forced him to look at his current life with uncomfortable clarity. His days were a frantic race from one task to the next. He barely knew his neighbors. He screened calls from his parents, promising to call back later, but later never came. He had become so focused on building his future that he had completely neglected his present. The pursuit of success had made him selfish, impatient, and disconnected. How many people had he ignored in his rush? How many small opportunities to be kind had he missed while staring at his screen? One evening, a thicker envelope arrived. This one felt different. Inside, the letter told a story that hit him harder than all the others. It was about a single mother he had tutored in math years ago as a volunteer. She had been struggling to pass an exam to get a better job, her confidence completely shattered. Ethan had patiently worked with her for weeks, not just teaching her algebra but encouraging her, telling her she was smart and capable. The letter was from her. She wrote that his belief in her was the push she needed. She passed her exam, went back to school, and had just been appointed the principal of a local elementary school. Your small act of patience gave me a chance to change my own life, she wrote. Now, I get to help change the lives of hundreds of children every day. Tears welled in Ethan's eyes. He felt a profound sense of gratitude and an overwhelming weight of responsibility. These weren't just stories, they were lives. Lives he had unknowingly shaped. The ripples the first letter mentioned were not just an abstract concept. They were real people, real successes, real joy. And for the first time, he understood that his life wasn't just his own. It was a collection of connections, of moments shared, of impacts made. His corporate achievement suddenly felt hollow, his ambition empty. What good was a promotion if it meant becoming a stranger to himself and the world around him? The next letter contained no story. Instead, it held a single, antique-style brass key and a riddle where stories live. And silence speaks, go to the place where the past you seek. Ethan knew immediately. The community library. He drove there, his heart pounding with a mix of fear and anticipation. He showed the key to the elderly librarian, who smiled knowingly and led him down a narrow staircase to the basement. She pointed to a heavy oak door at the end of a dusty corridor. "It's for you," she said softly, before leaving him alone. Ethan's hand trembled as he slid the key into the lock. The door creaked open, revealing a small, warmly lit room. And what he saw inside made him gasp. The room was filled with letters. Hundreds, maybe thousands of them, were pinned to bulletin boards, stacked on tables and arranged on shelves. Each one was addressed to him. He walked slowly around the room, pulling letters at random. One was from the man whose tire he'd fixed. He had been on his way to a job interview he almost missed, a job that pulled his family out of debt. Another was from a former colleague he'd stood up for in a meeting. She said his integrity inspired her to start her own ethical business. Every letter was a testament to a moment of kindness, patience, or honesty. It was a library of his own forgotten goodness. Standing in that room, surrounded by the echoes of his past, Ethan finally understood. Life wasn't about the title on his business card or the numbers in his bank account. It was about this. It was about the ripples, the connections. The small, seemingly insignificant acts that, woven together, created a legacy of positive change. It was about the lives you touch. He left the library a different man. That night, he called his parents, and for the first time in months, he just listened. He reached out to old friends he had lost touch with, started mentoring a new intern at his office, offering the same patience someone had once offered him. He began volunteering at the local shelter again, not for his resume, but for the simple joy of it. His life was no longer a race. It was a journey of connection. A few weeks later, one final letter appeared on his doorstep. The handwriting was familiar. "Your life is not measured by your success, but by the lives you touch," it read. "The letters have stopped, but your story is just beginning. Keep going. The ripples never stop." Ethan never found out who sent the letters. Maybe it was one of the people he helped, or maybe it was a collective effort. Or maybe, just maybe, it was a reminder from a part of himself he had almost lost forever. He carefully folded the last letter and placed it in his wallet. A permanent reminder that the greatest work we can ever do is to be kind. Your small act today can change someone's tomorrow.